All right, so we'll go ahead and get started. Won't take up too much of your time. I want to thank you for joining us today for this Zoom call um, with Legacy Flight Academy. Couldn't be more elated to be able to do this on my birthday. To sound excited would be an understatement, right? Again, for those who are not familiar with Legacy Flight Academy, I've had the opportunity to work with them. Let me get situated here. Probably for about the last 4 or 5 years now, so I am a board member. Interesting thing about that is LFA is a predominantly U.S. Air Force, active duty Air Force organization, and I'm the only Navy guy. So I get picked on a little bit, but it's fine. You know, go Navy. What we'll do today, again, on my birthday, again, I'm honored to be able to not only share my story and kind of talk about what I'm doing right now, but how I got here. I'm not the traditional pilot, so to speak. A lot of people you'll meet, they say they knew at 4, 5, or 6 years old that this is what they wanted to do. For me, that wasn't the case. Growing up, being a pilot wasn't really an option or a thought in my mind. So therefore, later in life, for those of you who are trying to figure out what's going on, what you're going to do later, there are a lot of options out there. For me, this is my 4th career, maybe my 5th career. Changed, but they've all been great. This is by far the best one. So what we're going to do is we'll get started. I'll go into a little bit about how I got to where I'm at, look at my background and so forth, and some humbling beginnings. All right. So we'll just start here and I'll talk you through it and go from there. All right. And again, my name is Kenneth Morris. I was in the Navy for 8 years. I flew on P-3s. You'll get a chance to see that here. Naval Air Station Whidbey Island. That's up by Seattle. So I was stationed in the Seattle area. Absolutely loved it. Coming from Houston, the weather was quite different, but I was able to adjust to that. I'm currently a pilot with the Forces to Flyers program at U.S. Aviation Academy. Great program. Thousands of people applied. They only chose 11 of us, and I was one of the 11 that they chose, and it's been a blessing to say the least. So that's currently what I'm doing now. It's basically going through my commercial airline training, going through my certified flight instructor training, and so forth. So again, I told you when I first started, this was not even an option. I'm the oldest. I actually have 7 younger sisters. This is 3 of them right here. Kristen, Catherine, and Kendra, right? So we all grew up together, and we had some humble beginnings coming from this house that you see. So if your house is better than this one, I'm not ashamed of it at all. This actually gave me my start and taught me to be appreciative of everything. So for all the young people, if your house is better than this, let your parents know how much you appreciate them, because they don't owe you much, right? So who I am, I'm a father, I'm a mentor, I'm a family man, and I'm a veteran. I'll see if you can find me in this last picture. See if you can point to it, right? Kind of sticking out. Look for that little dot right there, right? So I started this journey over 15 years ago. The first airplane I flew was a $36 million P-3 Orion. That's what I did my discovery flight in. Phenomenal flight, but that's what got the bug in me. Again, I was 18. Prior to that, I didn't even think I could fly. My job in the Navy was to look for submarines. So those are the submarines right there that you are looking at. 150 people in there. My job is to listen underwater like a dolphin and basically tell you everything about that submarine, what country it's from, and so forth, just to keep you safe. This is the plane that we did it on, the P-3 Orion. Again, this is a naval aircraft, the first airplane that I ever flew. Phenomenal airplane. They're actually getting ready to retire those. But that's the plane where I cut my teeth, and it's been a great experience since. That's the first plane I actually ever flown. So before I did it, there were many people that came before me that looked like me that were doing phenomenal things. So I have to give them all the thanks and appreciation in the world. The Tuskegee Airmen, Marlon Green, we got Victor Glover, Bessie Coleman, astronauts as well. So not just aviation, but aerospace and astronauts. So again, doesn't matter what you look like, doesn't matter where you come from, your background. If you work hard enough, you can really achieve anything you put your mind to. That's what this is really all about. That's what the Legacy Flight Academy is all about as well. Some of the best pilots I've ever flown were the females, hands down. The reason I say that is because men, we have egos, right? Flying with females, we're going through the checklist. Any kind of errors, any kind of emergencies, we're not gonna skip over anything. Those egos don't come into play. Also for air traffic controllers, this is Miss Eleanor Williams, first African-American female air traffic controller, and Miss Dana as well. Great people, but again, you don't just have to be a pilot, air traffic controllers, dispatchers, and so forth. Right now, if you look at this if there were 100 people flying right now, out of those 100, maybe 5 of them would be African American, 6 would be Latino, and maybe 3 or 4 would be female. There's a lot of opportunity in the coming years for pilots, just keeping that in mind. So when you think about what I do that's different from everything else, and we'll talk about it a little bit more, I can get entertainment involved in aviation. So I've met every celebrity you can probably think of because they all fly on airplanes. I'll tell you a little bit about that story shortly as well. So those are just some of them that I met. Michael Jordan, actually, I was at a party in Atlanta and met Diddy all through aviation. Again, I'm not a rapper. I can't sing. I can't do any of that stuff, but I got a chance to meet them, and we were talking about airplanes. So the opportunities are there. Kevin Hart, that's when he came to the military base, and that's actually him next to one of the smallest planes in the fleet. So you can only imagine how small he is compared to a good guy, you know, but he got exposed to aviation a little bit later than a lot of our younger people. So the Texans, I get access to a lot of players and things and so forth, but it's all through aviation. I don't play football professionally. I don't play basketball professionally, but what I do is in aviation, inspire young people. So that's how I'm able to get access to so many people and so forth. So George Foreman, all of these signs that you're seeing is actually people that are saying that they support what I do. So it's not just in Houston, but it's nationally. And that's what I'll talk to you about today is how do you improve your network? Basically, you can go to any city or any state and somebody's going to be able to assist you with resources. Boise, Idaho. I've never been to Boise, Idaho a day in my life, but there's somebody there who's willing to help not only me, but the people that's in my network find employment and training opportunities. All right. So some of the key points, again, I'll talk more about this. The main thing is don't fear failure. Fearing failure is probably the biggest hurdle for most people, whether you're a young person or an older person. Remember, nobody owes you anything. You got to get out there and outwork the next person, bottom line. So I've had an opportunity to not only be on different TV stations and so forth, radio stations, but again, I had no training. I just outworked my competition at the end of the day. So dream, achieve, exceed. That's my motto, and that's how I get everything done. All right, so I just want to give you that portion first, and then we'll actually click over here, and then I'll kind of walk you through a little slower. I just want you to see the pictures first. Just kind of walk you through what my thought processes were. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'm going to actually. If you have any questions, feel free to ask, and then we'll go from there. So again, my name is Kenneth Morris. I'm currently a pilot in the U.S. Department of Transportation Forces to Flyers program. So what that program is, they chose, this was last year, they chose 11 of us in the entire state of Texas. So Texas has 30 million people or something like that, some crazy number. They put out this program, so for veterans, basically they fund 100% almost flight training. To become a commercial airline pilot, it's pretty expensive. That was the biggest hurdle I had. I had the passion, but I couldn't afford it. It was like $80,000. So it's kind of hard to get over that barrier. So what the U.S. Department of Transportation did, they came up with a program. We were the first people to ever do it. And when the program works is you got to apply. Again, they had thousands of people applying, and I was one of the 11 chosen. So I was the director of education at a $40 million museum, and I'll backtrack to that shortly. But the moment I found out on a Wednesday that I accepted to the program. Thursday morning, I put my 2-week notice in. It was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And the job I had, I absolutely loved, but another opportunity opened, and I had to take it. So how the program works, again, you couldn't have had any type of licenses when you came in. Everybody has to start pretty much from scratch. Some people have flight hours, but other people really didn't have any. And I was kind of right there in the middle. So when everybody told me they're going to be people younger than you, which there are. They're going to be people who are more exposed to aviation than you, which there are. Pretty much gave me all the reasons not to do it, right? But I didn't listen to them. I knew that I had the ability, and if I just worked hard enough and studied hard enough, if they can do it, I can do it, right? So with that being said, what happened was I left my job, moved up to Dallas, didn't know where I was going to live at, no clue, but I figured I had to try something, right? So a group of us all decided to put our resources together, and we got a house together, right? So everybody would only pay a small portion of what this huge rent would be. That was one door opening. So when that happened, it's like, okay, this could possibly work. So as school started, again, I had aviation knowledge for flying, but not nearly as much as I needed to get to where I'm at now. So we all started out together, we all worked together, and I'm very grateful for the Forces to Flyers cadets that were chosen because we helped each other. That was really important. So once I got chose to do the program, got through my private license. My private took a little bit longer than what's expected because where I'm training at, the weather is not always the greatest, which was fine. Got through that with the training, went into my instrument training. With my instrument training, I actually did that in half the time it took me to do my private. So what that means is basically I can fly the airplane without looking outside. What that means is when it's raining, cloudy, if I go through thunderstorms, I can use my instruments to tell me if I'm going up, going down, turning left, turning right, and so forth. After that, started my commercial training. Now, again, the amount of money that it would cost for me to pay out of pocket, I'm probably at about 30 or 40,000, maybe more than that, $50,000 that I didn't have. So that's another reason this Forces to Flyers program was beneficial to not only me, but my to say the least. So started my training, working with other people who were learning like I was learning. And then the biggest thing I could tell you, whether it's training for this or your network. I knew other pilots that had been through this. They hadn't been through the program I'm in, but they were flying airplanes. I would reach out to them. They had already done it. So I wasn't going to recreate the wheel. I had to learn how to study again. The way I studied in high school, the way I studied in college, that wasn't going to work. So I had to learn how to study for aviation, study how to take tests. And it was a lot of effort being put in, but I had to learn how to do that all over again. Once I did that, I had to apply myself. So a lot of my friends who decided to go out and do other things, I couldn't do that because I knew I had a mission and a goal ahead of me. So I knew if I put the effort in now on the back end when I got done, all my friends and family would be proud of me. So that's why I changed up my process. I still talk to them daily, tell them I love them and so forth. But when it came time to fly, I knew I had to put that to the side as far as the fun aspect of it. And it paid off. So currently where I'm at now with the training is I'm going through my commercial multi. So basically flying an airplane with 2 engines on it. So we do all these maneuvers. Basically what we practice every day is, what if something happens? What if an emergency happens and you're not ready for it? Basically you're flying and the engine cuts off. What do you do? So in my head, I have to know, mixture props, throttle full forward, pulling back on the flaps, gear up, electric fuel pumps on. I need to know that mentally, and then I use a piece of paper, a checklist to make sure I did it right. But we study that over and over and over and over and over. So that's the key point, putting that work in so that when it comes time, if that emergency ever happens, it's just like you don't even think about it. You know what to do. Then you have a checklist right here to make sure that, basically, what's going on. So that's the part of my training I'm on now. So once I finish this part, my commercial training, then it's the CFI portion. CFI is Certified Flight Instructor. So once I become a certified flight instructor, I get to teach other people. So here I am exposing all these young people to aviation, but now I can actually take you in the plane, teach you how to fly, and certify by the Federal Aviation Administration to sign you off. So that's what the biggest accomplishment would be, is being able to teach others how to do what I do. And what gives me a aspect is, again, like other pilots I mentioned earlier, a lot of people started at 4 and 5 and 6 years old because their father was a pilot, their grandfather was a pilot, their uncle was a pilot. So that's what they knew they wanted to do. For me, it wasn't like that. I have great uncles and fathers and all, that's all great, but aviation wasn't something that was taught to us, right? And in my neighborhood, I never a pilot that looked like me. A pilot that looked like me never came to my school or anything like that. I have no memories of seeing a pilot or somebody that flies airplanes that looked like me. As a matter of fact, it was 35. I was 35 years old before I seen the first person from my neighborhood that flew airplanes that wasn't me. So again, that exposure early was really key. But again, that's the Forces to Flyers program. That was one of 6 scholarships that I won. So that's what I want to talk about real quick, just to kind of changed the pace about, okay, this is where I'm at right now, but how did I get here? Prior to this, I was the director of education for a museum, Lone Star Flight Museum in Houston. Great museum, flying museum. Right now they're shut down due to the COVID-19 pandemic. But if anybody's in Houston and you haven't been to the museum, it is a phenomenal place. We have great volunteers, great young people, and so forth. But I'll tell you how I got my scholarships. I know my niche, right? So I wasn't gonna apply to 300 scholarships, just cold calling people, hey, do you have money for me to fly, blah, 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 blah. I felt like my time was more important than just finding random people asking for. Some people that work, but for me, I didn't do that. I applied for 8 scholarships and I got 7 of them. So this is what I did. Again, when I talked about my network earlier, your network is extremely important. The people that I knew that were higher up in aviation, I told them what I wanted to do. I told them, hey, you know, I'm great. I love being at the museum, helping kids. I absolutely love this, but I want to try this commercial airline route. So as I spoke to them, they started connecting me with other people. So for example, my first scholarship was from the Organization of Black Aerospace Professionals. One of the board members who I knew personally told me about a scholarship that was approaching and wrote a letter of recommendation for me. So a letter of recommendation saying that, hey, this is a good guy, he has good character. If we invest in him, our money will be well spent. So when he wrote that letter of recommendation, it put me higher up on the list. I still have to do some work, but at the end of the day, my network, the person that I knew, helped me out. That was the very first scholarship I got. I think that was $2,500, but that was just enough to get me rolling. So after that, I applied for other scholarships. I got a scholarship from the Aviation Community Fund. I think it was $5,000. So I'm like, okay, $7,500. Now, mind you, I'm working with a family, paying all these bills. There's no way I could put this money towards flying because I have a family to take care of. So $7,500. Okay, this is my second scholarship. I said, and this was the second scholarship came from another contact that I knew. The third scholarship was from the Stripes to Bars. So Stripes to Bars, again, was a personal connection. Hey, Kenneth, here's an opportunity for you to fly, but you have to compete with everybody else, but we still want you to submit an application. But we know you personally, so that helps. So it's still a fair shot, but how are you gonna separate yourself from everybody else? That was the question. My fourth scholarship was from Colorado Veterans Project. My fifth scholarship was from Live Like Luke. I think I got $7,000 or something like that. Again, and somebody connected me to these scholarships. So the reason I'm telling you that is you can go online and Google all these scholarships and so forth, because that's what I did at first. But I was wasting so much time because I either didn't qualify due to my age, I didn't qualify due to where I lived, I didn't qualify due to my gender. It's just, for whatever reason, I didn't qualify. So why was I sending all these applications and it was taking so much time? So again, what I would say, if you're looking for any kind of money for grants or scholarships or whatever, I'm not a believer in just sending out 1,000 random emails, hoping somebody see it. For me, my time is so important. I'm going to do the research first. I'm going to call them and I'm going to try to establish a relationship with them. One of the things that people don't do is when there are opportunities to go volunteer and help somewhere, they don't do it. You know, sometimes you have to give of yourself. You have to have what they call skin in the game, right? I went to so many events where nobody paid me. Sometimes I even have to pay my own money just to establish those relationships. And you can do that at 15, 16 years old. A lot of times you just put something out there and you want somebody to give you something, and that's just not how it works in reality. I said that to say as well, even when it comes to getting hired, when I was hiring people at the museum, it wasn't based on just you sending in your resume. We're gonna have a conversation, we're gonna have multiple conversations, so I wanna see the person that I'm hiring. It's the same thing with scholarships. They don't wanna just give money, they wanna invest in you. So whenever you're looking for scholarships, if you decide to just send out 100, that's fine, but that time that you're using to do the research and so forth, that could better be used on focused research on when does the application come out, what are the requirements and so forth. Again, I applied for 8 scholarships and I got 7 of them. So, and I'm gonna apply for a few more. So just keep that in mind that that's my strategy, and I hope that works for you. Talked about that. The other thing I want to discuss too was my time at the museum and other opportunities for young people. I can't say this enough. One of the main things that I really, really want to stress is volunteering and internships, right? Treat it like a job. And what I will tell you is when you apply for these interns, this is what I did. And this might be giving you a little too much information, but when people apply for an internship or a job, I would look at their resume, and a lot of the times the resumes are what's the word? Not saying they're not truthful, but a lot of people put information in their resume to make them seem, I want to see your best self. Okay, that's fine. But my degree is in communications and computer information systems. So what that means is I work very good on computers, and I can find anything out about you. Everything you think is private is not private, right? So I'm going to use your email address. I'm going to do a reverse search. I'm going to find out everything that you've done on this email address. And if it is not in line with what my company is representing, I'm going to go to the next applicant, right? So unfortunately, people don't know that. GE does it, Coca-Cola does it. They actually have teams of people that looks at your social media, right? So that's what I do. I've been doing this for a long, long time. So if somebody says, hey, you know, I want to come work for you at the museum, I want to come work for you at your new job or whatever, I want to go flying with you. My degree in computer information systems and my experience has taught me, do the research first, because people in this generation we're living in, they will put anything on social media and think that there's no recourse or no consequences. But I assure you it is, right? So you're not going to get that scholarship, you're not going to get that internship or that job because of not only what you're putting, but I'm looking at who's commenting on your stuff. I'm looking at what are you liking. So you don't even know that I can see your activity. Even if you think it's private, it's really not. And the reason we do that is not because we're spies or but we're really trying to find the best candidate for a position. So young people, even if you're not interested in aviation or whatever it is you want to do, your social media, I'm telling you, I cannot stress it enough, it's vital. You're not going to get that position because of what you're doing on your off time. I hired a young lady, and this was genius. She actually deactivated all of her social media while she was going through her hiring process. And I didn't even know her, but she had already known that that's what companies are doing. So if you're looking for something, social media really isn't that important for me personally. So if you're looking for some type of position, if you deactivate everything, take everything off your page, there's nothing for them to find there. I'm not saying to be deceiving, but for me as a hiring manager, as somebody who's going to employ you to do certain things, I want to see who that real person is, who that character is. So just keep that in mind as you're looking out for future opportunities, especially scholarships, whether it's flying, football, basketball, music, art, whatever the case may be, somebody's looking at what you're doing, your digital footprint. I can assure you that, all right? So we talked about how I got to where I'm at, talked about what I did before I came here, talked about the social media, the stuff that's pretty much what everybody's doing. I'll talk to you about another thing that I think is a pretty hot topic right now, as far as where the industry is going. There's no secret that there are a lot of aviation professionals retiring, not just pilots, the mechanics, the air traffic controllers, they're all retiring. Not they're all retiring, but a large group is retiring just due to their age or their experience and so forth. So there's a lot of opportunity there, right? So one of the things that I would highly advise for those looking to join the aviation community, don't just stick to one thing. Like I fly airplanes, but I always go talk to the air traffic controllers. Probably my closest contacts are air traffic controllers, which is weird. You would think that I hang with a lot of pilots, but I really don't. I talk to a lot of air traffic controllers. And the reason for that is you get to see a different aspect. While we're up there flying, you know, out, you know, Skyhawk, 123 Delta Bravo, 6,000 feet, requesting flight following to Intercontinental, right? The entire flight there, I got somebody on the ground who's looking out for my safety. To me, that person is important. So we have to give them the same respect. The pilot, I mean, that is a great job, but there are other people who are making that flight that are equally, if not more important. The maintenance people, extremely important, right? So the pilots, we get a lot of, but you know, we're doing the transporting from A to B, but besides being a pilot, like the mechanic, and this is on the civilian side and the military side, the mechanics, the dispatchers, we even got the people that cleaning the windows and so forth. Not only dispatchers, the air traffic controllers, like I mentioned, the engineers. It's so many people that's making up this one unit. So as you're looking at different opportunities, if you want to be an entrepreneur in aviation, I tell people all the time, the easiest way that I've seen is if you were to start a detailing business. We've seen car wash detailers. We know what it's like to be able to drive your car to somewhere, whether it's a big fancy building or not, or underneath a shed at somebody's house. If they have a mobile detailing business and they're doing that to cars, why can't you do that to airplanes? There's really no reason why you can't. Look at somebody else that's already being successful at it. Create a business plan. It doesn't have to be 100 pages, but have an idea of where you're going, have some type of idea of where you're going. And then you have to go out there and put the legwork in. You're gonna have to go out there and put some effort in to learn that trade if that's what you want to do. So when it comes to aviation, there are so many things that people don't. We got our own lawyers. We got all those things that people are just unaware of, right? So entrepreneurial side, that's what I wanted to discuss as well in my, in this Zoom call, the entrepreneurs. And I don't see any questions yet either too. So I'm gonna make sure that we don't have any. Give me just a second here. And if you have any questions, please feel free to send them in. Cause I'm actually just taking a look here, Q&A. What are some of the flight simulators that you think would help starters? That's a great question. For flight simulators, when I was first starting, I didn't have the opportunity to use the flight simulators, but it is a great help. I think, what is it? 11 now? Microsoft Sim 11, X-Plane 11, I believe. That's the newest one, but if you have 10, that's also a great one to use. I think the biggest thing that I tell them is if you're not practicing every single day at whatever your craft is, somebody else is out there practicing. So while I'm sitting here, if I decide to not be on my simulator, and it really may not be as helpful an instrument for your private training, but when you get to instrument training, 90% of it is not even looking outside the plane. So all the work that you're doing on that simulator is going to help with your muscle memory and repetition and so forth. So keeping that in mind is extremely impossible, but extremely possible. What would be your largest obstacle coming out of the military? Any tips for a fellow shipmate? I will be completely honest with you. When I got out of the military, I thought I was the man. I'm like, okay, I know it all. I think out of the E5, I shot up the ranks real quick. I didn't have any money saved up. I said, I'm gonna get out here and get a job. It's not gonna be anything. If I could do it all over again, prior to me getting out, I would first establish my civilian network. Because in the military, all we know is military lingo. All we know is people who do what we do in the military. Because we never really leave the base. For me, because I was an introvert, I never really left the base. But when you step outside, it's a whole nother world. I would look into the Chamber of Commerce, go to those free networking events in whatever city you're in, but expand your circle outside of the military. That would be the biggest thing I could tell anybody. And if you're in aviation, look at people who are doing something outside of aviation, but your network is the most priceless thing you have. I flew a $36 million airplane. I wouldn't trade my network for that airplane at all. So that would be the best advice. Step outside of your comfort zone, and you don't have to wear your military uniform. You don't have to do anything like that. Be yourself, but think about the knowledge that you can gain in a network outside of the military. That would be the best advice I can give you. And I had to learn it the hard way. It took me a while to figure that part out. But that would be my biggest obstacle, is my network. And the simulator, I think it's X-Plane 11, but it's Microsoft. I think they're on version 11 though. But look up Microsoft Simulator, and then that would probably be the best one you can use at the moment. How did you get through the weather issues delaying your private pilot license? So you really don't get through them. The weather issues, they happen to everybody. And I'm training up near Oklahoma, so they happen to everybody. What I would say is be patient. I had a flight today, for instance, and I'm flying multi-engine now, and I'm hard on myself because I'm thinking I want to be the best pilot. Like, how are they getting this and I'm not getting it, right? So I'm hard on myself. I'm like, okay, I remember these flows and so forth, but don't compare yourself to anybody. Like, I don't care what anybody else is doing. We've had 2 people graduate the program already. I'm happy for them, but that's not me, right? All I can do is focus on what I'm doing. So the weather delays, I can't control that. So people were getting so upset. Oh man, the ceilings are too low. You can't control that. So what I would do is, the ceiling's too low, I'm either gonna go to the sim or I'm gonna get in the books. What else are you gonna do to maximize that time? You can't control the weather. You can't control when the airplanes break. You can't control any of that. So why are you stressing about it? You're only making it harder for yourself. So if you're having weather delays, trust me when I tell you, the best thing to do to maximize that time is don't stress about it, but go to the sims, get in the books, so when that weather does come around and you get your chance to fly again, you knock that flight out. That's what I would say. Because we've had so many weather delays, I couldn't even begin to tell you, but I had to learn it the hard way. And COVID-19 as well. COVID-19 is, so it all depends on where you're flying at. To be honest, COVID-19 has delayed some flights, especially commercial flights, but where I'm flying, we're a critical infrastructure at the airport that I'm flying. I'm flying out of a small town, so the airports are still moving, and flight training doesn't stop. So depending on where you're located in the country, COVID-19 has really shut the economy down. But what I would say in this time while you're dealing with that, be prepared, because the economy is going to come back up. I'm not just being a foolish optimist. The economy is going to come back up. What are you doing in this time while it's down to prepare? The weather's going to get better. What are you going to do while, the weather's down, and when it gets better, are you going to be prepared? Because somebody's out there spending 10 hours a day on a simulator. So when they get in the plane, it's just muscle memory. So just keep that in mind. Some stuff you cannot change, and that's just what it is. You just have to maximize every opportunity that you get. Just making sure we got all the questions answered. And if you have anything else that I'm not thinking about at the moment, feel free to ask. I'm pretty much an open book when it comes to this flying and so forth. Outside of scholarships, how do you balance through ratings timeline-wise, especially if I can't fly every day? So what I would say is, again, choosing your flight school is extremely important. I didn't get the opportunity to choose my flight school. The flight school pretty much chose me. So when I won the scholarships, when I won the big one, they told me to utilize the scholarship, you have to go to the school. I didn't know anything about the school at all. So once I got there, I learned the intricacies of it. I learned the things they did well, the things they did great. I learned the things that they were working on, right? So if you can't possibly change the way the flight school is going, because that's out of your control again, what I do is I use outside resources. I had a flight instructor, great guy, great flight instructor, but I knew 8 other flight instructors. So they all taught 8 different ways. So even though I was sitting here waiting for 3, 4, 5 days, I actually had a guy who was waiting 3 weeks for a flight, and it bothered him. But he had to learn, patience and so forth, and it ended up paying off. But in those 3 weeks, he was just hitting the books, and he was asking other flight instructors their opinion on how to do certain maneuvers and so forth. So again, if it's out of your control, like the weather, the maintenance, and sometimes maybe the flight school isn't operating the way you like, it's your money. So if you have the opportunity to explore the options, I always say do that. But if you're going to stay at that flight school, it would be easier for you to adjust to that flight school, because again, they're a huge operation. Make yourself known. One of the things, this is another thing, I actually talk to the people at the front desk. I established that relationship. So if I want to go flying, literally, I think my flight was Sunday and it got canceled or something like that, and they say, hey, do you want to fly again? At that time, I couldn't fly, but because of the relationship that I had with them, they were willing to put me back on the schedule. So the relationship that you have with the front desk, that's just as important as you have with the CEO of the school. So just keep that in mind. So if things aren't going your way, Just take a deep breath, exhale. You're not the only one going through it. It happens to all of us, I promise you. My son would be at the U.S. Coast Guard Academy. How can you pursue aviation if you are in the military? To be honest, the Coast Guard is probably one of the best options right now. For those who are not familiar with Coast Guard aviation, they're really big on diversity as well as the Air Force and the Navy. But the Coast Guard, they have a really great program. I know quite a few Coast Guard pilots, and I work closely with the Coast Guard, especially in Houston. But they have a lot of opportunities scholarship-wise. And it just starts with reaching out to a local recruiter. But if for another reason too, if you have any questions after this, I don't mind sharing my contacts with you. I'll send you whatever it is. If you want to email me, you can send it through LFA. I have no problem with sharing my network. That's actually probably how I get most of my blessings, to be honest with you. I don't keep it all to myself. If I can help you or I know somebody can help you, I'll send that to you. So if you're interested in the Coast Guard, who has a lot of great opportunities for flying right now, especially for diversifying their pilots, I would definitely say reach out to that recruiter in your area, or if not, you can reach out to me and we can figure that out together. But that's a great question. The Coast Guard is a great option as well. You just don't hear about it. What age do you think is the age to start trying to apply to the flight academy? So if you're talking about military, I went through the flight academy that I'm at is a Part 141 and a 61, but I'm going through the civilian side. In the military, I flew on P3s as an air crewman, meaning I was the guy in the back working on the computers. My job was to drop, I'm trying to tell you without violating any security. So my job was to drop listening devices in the ocean. These huge listening devices, kind of like the Beats by Dre headphones that are out now. We had those 20 years ago, right? So we had those, and they were free. So we dropping these listening devices in the ocean, and my job is to listen underwater, like a dolphin uses their echolocation. I'm something like a dolphin. So I can listen underwater and tell you everything about the noises that are going on underwater. So I hear dolphins, I hear sharks, I hear fish, I hear whales. Then I hear this large man-made device. I know it's man-made because of the frequency that it's putting out in the ocean. So my job is, without seeing it, I have to listen, and I would tell you, this submarine is from Russia. This submarine is from Japan. This submarine is from Australia. This submarine is from Germany. It's going this fast. It's this deep. It's turning left. It's turning right. It's coming up. It's going down. It's opening up its missile doors. The missile that it's going to shoot out is XYZ. It can hit these 4 cities, and this is how big the explosion is going to be in a matter of 3 hours. That was my job in the Navy, right? So I say all that to say, I didn't go to a flight academy. I didn't go to the Naval Academy. I didn't go to the Air Force Academy, obviously. My training came on the tail end of my military career. So for the flight academy where I'm at, they have 18-year-olds that are there doing the flying. If you're in a Part 61, which is less structured, we're still the same. The hours are still pretty much the same, but it's less structured. You can start training as early as 16, 17. So the earlier, the better. I wasn't exposed to aviation until I was 18. So that's why I'm a little bit behind others, but I'm where I'm supposed to be in my thoughts. So that's a great question. So if you're going to a flight academy, that's a military academy or something like that, it's just like any other college. I would look at, what is that? Their age range to get into, again, a Naval Academy, the Coast Guard Academy. I think the Marines go to the Naval Academy as well, and then you choose, and West Point, and then the U.S. Air Force Academy. All great schools, but my grades weren't good enough to get into those schools when I left high school. Which brings me to my next point, right? If I knew then what I know now, when I was in school, again, I was the class clown. Like, I barely graduated high school, barely. And the reason I barely graduated high school was because the people I was around. In Houston, where I lived at, going to school was not the cool thing to do in my neighborhood, right? So if you're going to school and you're making all the good grades, you're kind of getting, you wasn't a cool kid. So me being a follower at the time, I'm trying to be the cool kid. If I had to do it all over again, that would not be the way I went. And the reason I say that is because now that I'm older, and my birthday is today, again, I grew another year older today, the way I see things and the way that they see things is quite different. Meaning, I have the jobs and have the connection, the network to the people that have the jobs, and those people who would bully me or tease me or make me do things that I probably didn't want to do, they're still trying to catch up, so to speak. So all that time that was wasted, so to speak, in high school, when I wasn't studying, when I wasn't doing my science or my math, I had to work 10 times harder when I got to the Navy. Because the rate that I had, I was an AW, the rate that I had, these guys were super smart, like super, super smart. But I was the only one that looked like me in the class. So every time I look around, I didn't see any other African Americans. I'm like, wait a minute, you know, I can't flunk out of here. So when they would finish the class day, we would go to class from 8 to 5, and then they would go off and do whatever they had to do. I would have to make myself stay for another 2 hours because I didn't understand how important the math was and so forth. So if I could do it all over again in high school, I would make those grades. I would worry about, you know, my friends and all that stuff. Like, I cannot stress that enough. They're going to be there. And if they're not there, then they're not your friends anyway, right? So that's extremely important. If I could do that over again, I would definitely focus on my math, my science. And again, college isn't for everybody. I'm not a military recruiter. It was good for me because I needed structure. I was out doing everything the wrong way. So if you have a support system now, if you have a guardian, a mother, father, uncle, sister, brother, somebody that's pushing you to stay in school, you are blessed, right? I had that, but I was still making the wrong decisions. As I look back now, even if you're not going to college and you decide to pick up a trade, you can be a plumber, you can be whatever it is. Everybody's not made for college. If you look up the job as a pilot, we have universities that have this career, but it's not, I think it's considered a trade. It's not considered like a career like a lawyer or something like that. So what I do is a trade. If I was going to go out and start my own company, I'm starting a trade as a pilot. So just keep that in mind. Your path may not be everybody else's. You're not going to get there when somebody else gets there. They're going to get there before you. That doesn't make you any less. If you get there before them, that doesn't make you any better. You know, everybody has their own way of getting there. Again, I have military friends that fly planes that are way faster than mine, fly way higher than mine, but I can't compare myself to them. I can only do what's best for my situation and my abilities. And you just learn from them. So that's the best advice I can give you if you're in high school and you're looking for opportunities, whether it's aviation or anything. Don't compare yourself to anybody else. All right, we got a bunch of questions. That's a good one. All right, I'm gonna look through a couple. And then if it's anything else, again, whether it's life stuff or aviation stuff, entrepreneur stuff, I'll tell you a couple of good stories that I think has helped me along the way. There's a lady by the name of Zelia White. And people always ask me, what's your biggest memory or your greatest memory from aviation? And a lot of people tell you it's the first time they soloed. For me, it wasn't. It wasn't my first solo. I mean, I remember it, but that wasn't the highlight of my career, my aviation career. And it wasn't in the military. We've done so many cool things in the military, but I'll tell you the highlight of my aviation career was being able to help induct Miss Zelia White into the Aviation Hall of Fame. So my role, I was the director of education at the Lone Star Flight Museum in Houston. Again, great museum, brand new. It's only been there a couple of years, about $40 million, flying museum, phenomenal place. And I noticed when I went into the Hall of Fame that many of the pictures on the walls were not very diverse. Let's put it like that. Weren't many women, weren't many minorities, right? So the funny thing is I was getting my hair cut one day, and then the barber said to me, hey, you should go across the street. The lady opened up her garage, a bunch of airplane things there. It looked like, I think her husband did something in aviation. So it sparked my interest. Like, okay, let me just go see what's going on over here, you know, because I'm just an aviation enthusiast, and he's right across the street from my barber. So I walked across the street, and I knocked on the door, and the older lady, she had a caretaker. So I knocked on the door, and she said, yes, how may I help you? And I'm thinking, yeah, I just wanted to speak to the lady or the man of the house. And she said, are you a reporter? And I'm thinking, no, I'm not a reporter. I'm just in aviation and I work at the museum. I just wanted to let them know what we had at, just opening up in Houston. Well, she's not available right now. You can come back. I had to come back like 3 or 4 times. Like they would not let me talk to her. So I'm thinking, okay, this is interesting, right? So the 4th time I went in and talked to her, told her who I was, and she asked me, so did James send you? And now the aviation community is pretty small, so I'm thinking, who is James? Then she said, James Miller. And I said, I know somebody named James Miller. He's a part of Black Pilots of America. Again, this is my network. When I went and talked to him and got some information on who I was talking to, her name was Azalea White. She was 104 years old at the time. She was the first African-American female to get her pilot license in the state of Texas. With that being said, she was a national treasure and nobody knew she was there. For me, that was a blessing because nobody in Houston knew she was there. When I say, let me rephrase that, I take that back. I won't say that nobody knew she was there. The people in my circle were not exposed to all the things that she did, the great things. Her husband was a Tuskegee Airman. So I took it upon myself to go to my CEO at the time, 3-star general from the Air Force. I never worked for a 3-star before. We are night and day when it comes to where he was in the military and where I was. I told him about her. I introduced him to her, and they did all type of background checks to make sure that, everything I was saying was valid. I was offended at first, but, this is what we have to do to get our say-so and get our pictures in the wall and so forth. But Azalea White was on the short list to become only the 2nd African-American female in the Texas Aviation Hall of Fame. The only other person was Bessie Coleman, who was born in Atlanta, Texas. So being able to help get Azalea White into the Texas Aviation Hall of Fame for me has been the biggest accomplishment in my aviation career. Flying is fun, engaging the youth is fun, I love that, but being able to get her into the Hall of Fame, and not only get her into the Hall of Fame, but she came to the gala that year. This is probably the last event she did publicly. And the astronaut Buzz Aldrin came. Now, this is a star-studded event, but when Azalea came, everybody who was there absolutely gave her all the love and so forth that she deserved. And her husband was a Tuskegee Airman. She got her pilot license in 1946. So just think about it, the African-American female dealing with all type of setbacks and obstacles. She got a pilot license in 1946. And, just being able to be a part of that has been my biggest contribution to aviation. And I'm forever grateful for that. All right, little model M16. Okay, that's awesome. Let me think. Any other questions that you may have? Let me give the time check here. So if you have any other questions also, feel free to ask them. More information about Legacy Flight Academy. Again, you can always Google them. It's going to take you straight to the website. Not only take you to the website, but take you to the YouTube links and so forth. As we continue going forward, I encourage everyone to not only look at the YouTube links, but reach out. When I was younger, I was bashful, I was quiet, and I was missing opportunities. People always say a closed mouth don't get fed. So what that means is if you have a question, do not be afraid to ask. All they can tell you is yes or no. And not only yes or no, most of the time, especially in aviation, people are really helpful. They want to help you, right? So with Legacy Flight Academy, and now I'm blessed. Again, I'm the only Navy guy, and it's great Air Force guys. I mean, women, they're great. They don't really tease me. I was making fun about that part. But I have noticed that their work ethic and the things that they believe in, they put 100% effort in. So that's why I'm honored to be a part of Legacy Flight Academy. One of the events that they have going until the 30th of March is Tuskegee 99. So what that is basically on the 99th day, again, the Tuskegee Airmen, as one of the units, which ends March 30th, it's a drive, basically a fundraiser drive, so that we're able to continue doing what we're doing in young people. And I know COVID-19 has slowed a lot of the aviation down, but we have these phenomenal events called Eyes Above the Horizon, where we go to different cities and we take young people flying, we introduce them to other awesome pilots, male and female, not only take them flying, but we put them in simulators, we do character sessions, mentoring, and so forth. You get an opportunity to meet the people instead of just seeing us on a camera. You can actually come up to us, hey, I remember you said XYZ. Can I get some more information about that? So you get a chance to put a name with the face and get other information. So Tuskegee 99's opportunity, again, going to Legacy Flight Academy website. It is a phenomenal opportunity to not only give back, but help other people who are just unaware of what's going on. Where can we find you if we have, okay, what do you plan to do? I got 2 questions. So after I get my CFI, that's a great question. I'm not an airline guy. I'm gonna be honest with you. I flew in the military for a long time. A lot of people are, a lot of people are going through the program to go to the airlines. I'm an instructor. I want to help as many people as possible. So I'm likely going to get my CFI, CFII, and stay in Houston and travel around as well, but help as many people learn to fly as possible. Again, 1,500 hours is what you need usually to get to the airlines. And that's great. But for me, my passion is not just going to the airlines. If it happens, it happens. But I want to help as many people as possible, teach them everything I know, and then direct them on how they can get to the airlines. I'm a little bit older, so I want to let others have the fun that I had when I was younger. So that's my plan after I get my CFI, is to teach other people how to fly and sign them off. So if you have any other questions or you want to know anything else, again, go to Legacy Flight Academy. My name is Kenneth Morris. I'm on the LFA board. Again, I'm a pilot for the Forces to Flyers program here. They had thousands of applications throughout the country. I'm one of the people they chose. They say it was the best of the best. I thought it was funny, but I was blessed to have the opportunity to fly, and they pay for all my training. But if you want to look me up, feel free to reach out to the info there, and they'll connect you with me with any other questions you have. My email address, if you want that, I can give you my email address. It's just Mr. Kenneth Morris, MrKenneth I'll give you at yahoo.com. That one comes directly to my phone, and then we can still talk through LFA. I'll send you that email address as well. If you have any other questions, something I didn't answer for you today, anything I can help you out with, connecting you with other mentors and so forth, feel free to reach out to me. Go to YouTube, look up Legacy Flight Academy. I also have a YouTube page as well under Universal Elite Aerospace with a new video. I actually just put up a new video today. And I think it's under Be the Change. So if you can, Legacy Flight Academy YouTube, my organization, Universal Elite Aerospace, just put it in the YouTube. And then the first video to pop up is one I actually just put out. So that way you can even see me in my old neighborhood, the same information I gave you, kind of giving it to somebody on the video and doing audio and so forth. Again, I'm extremely glad that you were able to join me. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out via email, reach out to Legacy Flight Academy. Tuskegee 99, we're still pushing. We're going to get through this thing together. I assure you, once we get on the other end of this, we're going to start flying. We're going to start doing things, the new normal, but we will get back to having fun. I'm 100% sure of that. And LFA is going to be extremely excited. Thank you for everybody that tuned in. Thank you, Aunt Tanya. Thank you for all my family and friends. Thank you for all the young people that tuned in. Ethan, I get a chance to see all of you. I wish I could be there celebrating with you, but I'll be back home. And again, and thank you. Happy birthday. Thank you from Jamila. I appreciate it. I flew this morning. I actually told them I didn't want to fly because it was my birthday. I'll tell you, that's the one thing you don't do. As soon as you tell them you don't want to fly, they're going to put you on the flight schedule. So that's another secret. Don't tell them you don't want to fly because it's your birthday. I had to fly from 9 to 12. So again, thank y'all very much. I'm grateful for the opportunity. If there's anything that I can do to help you or LFA can do to help you, that's what we're here to do. And it's been a great, great time with you. All right. Have a good one. Bye-bye.